My daughter handed me a note saying, "They've already taken her," as I saw her trapped behind glass. I could barely comprehend the words at first. It felt like my mind couldn't catch up with what my eyes were seeing. The note was crumpled in my hand, the paper creased and stained with tears, but that single line was all I could focus on. "They've already taken her." The words throbbed in my skull, a constant pulse, as I tried to grasp the reality around me. I looked up from the note, my hands shaking as I slowly folded it back and tucked it into my pocket. My breath hitched as I turned, scanning the room that had felt like a sanctuary just hours before. The sterile white walls, the buzzing fluorescent lights above, the steady hum of machinery, it all seemed so cold now, so clinical. But what struck me the most, what almost shattered my composure entirely, was what I saw just beyond the glass. My daughter, my precious Ellie, was trapped behind it, staring out at me through a thick, reinforced pane. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, but her eyes were all I needed to understand. She was pleading for help. She was terrified, and I had no idea how to reach her. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, as the world around me blurred into a haze. The room seemed to spin, my vision narrowing to the glass between us, and every instinct in my body screamed at me to break through it, to reach her, to make her understand that I was there, that I wouldn't leave her alone. But the truth was becoming painfully clear. I couldn't get to her. Not yet. Not with the men in white coats standing on either side of her, monitoring her every move like they were guarding a dangerous animal. It was like I was in some kind of nightmare, one where the rules of reality no longer applied. How did this happen? I muttered to myself, though I wasn't sure if I was asking the question aloud or to the silence that surrounded me. The note in my hand was still trembling, my fingers cramping as I clutched it harder. How did we get here? The doctors, if you could even call them that, had said she was fine. Ellie had been perfectly healthy, perfectly normal. A little stubborn at times, yes, but that was just part of growing up. Wasn't anything I hadn't dealt with before. But then it started. The signs, the things I had missed. First, the small changes in her behavior, her mood swings, her growing reluctance to leave the house, to interact with anyone. I chalked it up to the pressures of school, adolescence. Maybe even the strange things she was seeing in the news. Things no child should ever have to witness. It all seemed so distant, like a blur in the background of our lives. Until it wasn't anymore. One morning she had come to me, her face pale and drawn, her eyes hollow like she hadn't slept in days. "Mom," she whispered, clutching her stuffed bear to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "They're watching me. They're always watching me." I didn't understand at first. She was talking about people who were supposed to be invisible, who had somehow wormed their way into her world without me even noticing. The they she was referring to wasn't anyone I could identify, wasn't anyone tangible, but I could feel the fear radiating off her. She wasn't just scared, she was terrified. And then the dream started. Every night, Ellie would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, her eyes wide with terror, telling me she couldn't escape, that they were after her. I'd hold her, rocking her in my arms, trying to reassure her that everything was fine. But the nightmares only got worse, more vivid, more real. For her, I didn't know what to do. I took her to a doctor, of course, but the tests came back normal. Blood work, sleep studies, psychological evaluations. Everything pointed to a healthy, normal teenage girl, caught in a cycle of anxiety. "It's just a phase," the doctor told me. "Something she'll grow out of. Puberty's tough. Just give it time." But time didn't help. It only made things worse. The nightmares didn't stop. The whispering voices, the shadows in her room, the sense that something or someone was watching her, following her, didn't fade. In fact, they only grew louder, more intrusive, until I could see it in her eyes every time she looked at me. Fear. Fear that I couldn't chase away, no matter how hard I tried. I knew something was wrong. I knew it wasn't just a phase. But what could I do? I was a mother, not a therapist. I was supposed to protect her, to make everything better. But how could I protect her from something I couldn't even see? How could I stop the invisible monsters that were tormenting her? Then that night, 2 days ago, the night everything changed, she had disappeared. Lee had slipped out of the house without a word, and I found her hours later, stumbling through the park near our neighborhood, her hands trembling, her face drained of color. "They're coming," she said in a broken whisper, her voice barely audible. "They're coming for me. They've found me." I tried to calm her, to bring her back inside, but she was in a panic. The fear had taken over, and nothing I said seemed to matter anymore. I thought I could help her. I thought that if I could just hold her close, convince her that everything would be all right, that the fear would subside. But I was wrong. The next thing I knew, she was being taken by men in white suits, men who had shown up at our door unannounced, their faces impassive, their words cold and clinical. They said it was for her own safety, that she was a danger to herself, that they had to take her. And now here we were. Ellie was behind the glass, trapped in a sterile, cold room I couldn't get to, and the note she had handed me, the note that had burned a hole in my palm, had sealed. "Oh, they've already taken her." The words felt like a death sentence. It wasn't just that Ellie had been taken from me. It was that something else had taken her. Something I couldn't understand, something I had failed to see. How had it gotten this far? How had I let it happen? I wanted to scream. I wanted to bang my fists against the glass, to demand answers, to rip this whole nightmare apart piece by piece until I could understand it. But all I could do was stand there watching her, my heart breaking with every passing second. Ellie's eyes met mine through the glass. She was mouthing something, her lips moving rapidly. But I couldn't hear her. I stepped closer to the glass, pressing my hands against it, trying to bridge the gap between us, trying to make her understand that I was there. And then she wrote something. Slowly, deliberately, her fingers pressed against the cold glass. She scrawled the words, and my breath caught in my throat as I read them. "They know everything about you." I didn't know what that meant, but in that moment, I understood that the worst was yet to come. I pressed my palm harder against the cold glass, staring at the note Ellie had just written, my mind scrambling to comprehend what she had just revealed. "They know everything about you." The words felt like a heavy weight, a chain I couldn't break. My pulse raced and my breath came in shallow gasps as I tried to make sense of the horror that was unfolding around us. What did she mean? Who were they? And how did they know about me? I looked at Ellie, my daughter, trapped on the other side of the glass, her wide, terrified eyes locked on mine. She was mouthing something again, frantic now, her hands pressing against the glass as if she were trying to bridge the impossible gap between us. But it wasn't enough. Wasn't enough to reach her. She was lost, and I didn't know how to find her. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, the rhythm of panic thundering through my body. The walls of the sterile, clinical room felt like they were closing in on me. This wasn't the world I knew anymore. Everything had changed, and I was powerless to stop it. I had no idea what was going on. The doctors, the men in white coats, hadn't told me anything. They said they were protecting her, that it was for her own safety, but I could see the truth in Ellie's eyes. Something was terribly wrong, and they weren't telling me what it was. "Ellie," I whispered, my voice breaking. "What's happening? What are they doing to you?" Her lips trembled as she mouthed something else. I leaned in closer, my heart pounding, but I couldn't make out the words. It was like the glass between us wasn't just a barrier. It was a wall of silence, blocking us from everything we had known, from everything that was safe. Reached out again, her hand brushing against the glass, and for a moment I could feel the desperation in her touch, a desperation that mirrored my own. But before I could even try to speak again, the door to the room opened behind me and I froze. The air seemed to thicken as a figure in a white lab coat stepped into the space, the sound of their shoes clicking sharply against the tile floor. I turned to face them, my chest tightening. It was one of the men who had been overseeing Lee. His face was unreadable, cold and distant. His eyes flickered from me to Ellie and he spoke in a low, controlled voice, his tone clinical, detached. "We need you to come with me," he said. "Come with you," I repeated, my voice hoarse with disbelief. "Where are you taking her?" "Going on. You can't just lock her up in there and—" "She's not locked up," he interrupted, his eyes narrowing slightly. "She's being contained for her safety. There are things you don't understand, things we can't explain right now." "Don't understand?" My voice rose in anger, my fear turning into something more dangerous. "I understand enough. My daughter is in there and she's scared. You're doing something to her, and I want to know what it is. Now." He didn't flinch, didn't even acknowledge the depth of my panic. He just stood there, his hands folded in front of him like he was waiting for something to happen. "You're not in a position to demand answers," he said flatly. "You need to trust that we're doing what's best for her. We've been monitoring her for quite some time, and we've observed certain phenomena that we need to address." "Phenomena?" he echoed, my blood running cold. "What are you talking about? Is she sick?" "She? Not in the way you think," he cut me off again, his expression hardening. "There are things happening to her that go beyond the scope of conventional medicine. We've been studying her for months, ever since we noticed the patterns, the things she's been experiencing. They're not just psychological. There's a reason she's been so terrified, a reason she's been seeing things that aren't there. And the truth is, we can't afford to let it spiral any further." I was trembling now, my mind racing, my heart pounding in my ears. I had so many questions, so many fears, and none of them were being answered. But what he had just said, not just psychological, told me more than I wanted to know. Ellie wasn't just going through some passing phase. She wasn't just having nightmares. Something far worse was happening to her. Something I wasn't prepared for. "What do you mean, not just psychological?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and desperation. "What are you saying about my daughter?" He glanced at Ellie, who was still behind the glass, her face pale and strained. "We've detected a disruption, a shift in her mental and physical state that doesn't match any known medical conditions. Something beyond our understanding. Something that shouldn't be possible." I took a step forward, my eyes fixed on him, trying to make sense of his words. "What are you trying to tell me? What is happening to her?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned and motioned for me to follow him down the hallway. "This is not a discussion we can have here. I need to show you something. You need to understand what's happening before you can help her." I hesitated, my feet rooted to the floor. I didn't want to follow him. I didn't want to go anywhere until I had answers. But something in his eyes told me that if I didn't, I would never get those answers. "Come with me," he urged, his voice softer now, though still full of authority. "There's no time left." With one last glance at Ellie, I took a deep breath and followed him down the sterile corridor. The walls seemed to close in around me as we walked, the low hum of the building almost deafening. It felt like we were moving deeper into a place I shouldn't be, a place where no mother should ever have to go. Finally, we reached a door at the end of the hallway. He swiped a card to unlock it, and the door swung open with a mechanical hiss. Inside was another room, this one even colder than the rest of the building. The air felt thick, suffocating. My eyes immediately fell on the small, dimly lit monitor in the center of the room. "Sit down," the man said, gesturing to the chair in front of the screen. You need to see this. The only way you'll understand. I sat, my legs trembling beneath me, my heart racing in my chest. I didn't know what I was about to see, but I had a feeling it would change everything. The monitor flickered to life, and a video began to play. It was blurry at first, the images distorted, but then it cleared and I saw my daughter, Ellie. But this wasn't the Ellie I knew. Her face was twisted in fear, her eyes darting around the room, like she was being chased by something unseen. She was talking, no screaming, but there was no sound. It was like her voice had been swallowed by the static on the screen. The video fast-forwarded. It showed her lying in bed, her body writhing in pain as her hands moved erratically, like she was reaching for something that wasn't there. The room around her seemed to shift, the walls warping, the shadows growing longer. "This is what's happening to her," the man said softly, his voice a low murmur. "She's not just seeing things, she's experiencing them. And it's getting worse. The force that's controlling her, it's growing stronger. If we don't act quickly, she'll be lost." I felt a cold shiver run through me as I watched the footage, unable to tear my eyes away. Lee was being consumed by something I couldn't even begin to comprehend. And the worst part was that I had no idea how to save her.